All right, so uh, Python 3.10 version, first release of beta Python 3.10 is coming soon, which should be next week, and Python 3.10 already has a bunch of cool new features and improvements and other changes. So I think it's a good time to go over all the new stuff that's coming, and that's why this talk will be about all the important features and changes in Python 3.10. So before I begin with the actual talk, let me introduce myself real quick. So my name is Martin Heinz. I'm a DevOps engineer and I work at IBM. I mostly work with stuff like Docker, Kubernetes, OpenShift, and CI/CD stuff. And obviously, I also work with Python and also some React applications. In my free time, I do mostly all the same, more cloud stuff, tinkering with hardware, software, and stuff like that. And shameless plug, I also maintain programming blog at martinheinz.dev. So I'm writing about Python, Go, cloud stuff, and things like that. So in case you are into that kind of stuff, you might want to check it out. So now for the actual talk. So before I go into the features of Python 3.10, I would first highlight the release schedule. So currently we are at Alpha 7 of Python, which was released on 6th of April. And next release will be first beta, which is scheduled for next Monday. After that point, there should be no more new features or changes, only testing, and then the actual release of Python should be in October. I would also bring this screen here real quick. So this kind of schedule was established before Python 3.9. So you can see that we are currently here at close to B1. So we will have 4 beta versions, 2 release candidates, and then the actual release. And here is the release schedule for 3.10. So these are the dates that are expected, but as is tradition, they are never actually hit, and there's always like actual and expected, which is always different because it's never really on time. So with that out of the way, let's talk about installing the alpha beta version, as it's not the same process as you would use with full normal versions. So to install 3.10 or other non-release on your system on Linux, you would go to the FTP server of Python and choose the correct version for your system. You can see here all the versions that are available. There's version for every type of system, all the previous versions. So whatever you need, you download from here. You unzip it, untar it, and then you first have to configure. If you try this, make sure you use the prefix argument or flag, as without using it, you might masquerade or overwrite your default interpreter, which might end up very badly, especially on Linux or Mac. This also builds an unoptimized version of Python, so if you want to do some performance testing, you would need to include enable optimizations tag, flag, I mean. After that, you run make install, and you can start the interpreter with this command. And this will give you the IDLE environment, probably saying that you are in some kind of 3.10 version. There are more information about installing and configuring it on following link. So as I said, there are like some flags to configure, so you can run with debug or use optimizations like enable optimizations or with LTO flags and stuff like this. Now for the actual features. First I want to highlight is error message improvements. So there are improvements to syntax error, indentation error, attribute error, and name error messages. They are more kind of specific and targeted. So as a few examples I have here, syntax error. Now I'll tell you that if you forget closing bracket for dictionary, they will tell you that where you should add it and that you missed it. Another syntax error is that syntax error improvement is that if you forget a comma in declaration of dictionary, it will tell you where you forgot the comma, which is nice quality of life improvement. Another one which I make, another mistake I make quite a lot is using single equal sign instead of two in conditionals. So if you use single equal sign in if statement, it will tell you that you should use two. And two more for attribute error and name error, which are very clever, I think. If you accidentally mistype a method name or function name, it will try to suggest to you some valid name that's similar to the one you tried using. And similarly with name error for variables, if you use variable that doesn't exist, it will try to suggest some other similar one that exists in the context. Next are type checking improvements in Python 3.10. So there are a couple of them. So if you are into type checking and type annotations, you will be happy with the changes probably. First of them is usage of union operator in annotations. So if you are not aware, Python 3.9 added a union operator, which allows you to union dictionaries, for example, like this. To merge two dictionaries. Now, in Python 3.10, you can use the same syntax in annotations in function headers. So here you can see the vertical line operator. A similar thing works also for isInstance method. So if you are checking whether some value has specific type, you can also use this kind of notation to check for multiple times at the same time. Another typing improvement is that is syntax improvement for type aliases. So in Python 3.9 and earlier, if you wanted to create type alias, you would do something that looks very much like assignment. So you just kind of assign the type into a variable, which isn't quite readable because it looks like assignment to variable. So starting from 3.10, you would use the new syntax where you would use the type alias keyword. Important thing about this is that it's backward compatible, so it's not gonna break your code written before, so you can start using this new syntax or keep the old one. There are some more typing changes or improvements in 3.10. one of them is parameter specification variable, which I don't want to go too deep into. It's for forwarding types for higher order functions. So if you annotate things like decorators with types, you can forward the types, but it's not very readable and it's more for type checkers. So don't want to go into detail about this, but you can check it out at this URL. Another change is for context manager syntax improvements. So previously you wouldn't be able to create context managers with on multiple lines, but from starting in 3.10 you can essentially do whatever you want with the line breaks and whatnot. I tried throwing everything I could at it, and it just works somehow. It somehow knows what to do, and that's thanks to new parsers that Python has. It's a PEG parser instead of LL1 parser, which is more flexible. One cool thing about this is that you can also create one context manager and then use the variable from the S statement in the next context manager, which is pretty cool. Moving on, one tiny function that got added to Python 3.10 is bit count, which is function or method that computes a population count of a binary value of integer. It's essentially number of ones in a binary representation. In actual implementation could be literally just one line of code, as you can see below, but it's one of those very convenient, nice things about Python that it has like every possible function, method, feature in standard library that you wouldn't expect to find there. So I wanted to mention it because it's one of the reasons why Python is so nice. Apart from all the new stuff and improvements in Python, there are always some deprecations, removals, and some things to consider when porting to the new version. So starting with deprecations, this utils module will be deprecated, but it shouldn't be a big deal for anyone as it's mostly replaced already with packaging and setup tools, and it's still gonna stay in Python until 3.12. Another deprecation is for threading methods, rather threading module methods. So those aren't really gonna be removed, but they are being renamed because the old methods are using camel case, which is not Python style, syntax style, recommended one anyway. So they are just renaming them, and the old ones will be at some point removed. And also some old import methods and attributes are being deprecated. Those are mostly things that were kept for compatibility since 2.7, and there's now effort to get rid of them finally. So if you go to see changelog, you will see a big wall of deprecations, but most of them are just old import methods that are kind of all over the place in standard library. There are also some removals, but those are mostly things that were deprecated already since 3.9 or even 3.4. So that shouldn't be an issue for anyone. And there are also some undocumented, unimplemented methods being removed. So no harm there, just cleanup. And one thing you might need to consider when porting to Python 3.10 is that it will require OpenSSL 1.1.1 renewer. This version of OpenSSL was released in 2018, so again, not a big deal probably, and you should use it anyway, considering that it has some important things like TLS 1.3 and some SHA algorithms. So yeah, there are, as has been tradition for quite a few releases now, there are some performance improvements in Python, like in new Python version. First one is for methods or functions, map, filter, reverse, bool, and float, which got a bit of speed up thanks to a new version, new way of object calling in Python. Those, based on the benchmarks I saw, those should be faster by like 15 to 30%, which is pretty nice. There are some Python core optimizations. You can find specifics about them in these numbers in Backtracker. Those are mostly like C level improvements, so I'm not gonna dig into them, but some general performance improvements. And the most noticeable one you will find in the new version is string bytes and byte array constructor improvements. So those should be faster by like 20 to 30%, as you can see from the example here. So if you want to run this kind of performance check, you can use PyPerf and timeit modules, and you would use the 3.10 version and run it against some other Python interpreter and use the specific function, string bytes or byte array. If you want to do this, make sure you are comparing against Python 3 or not Python 2, if it's based on what's your default, because Python 2 doesn't work with PyPerf, as far as I know. And also make sure that you compile or build Python 3.10 with enabled optimizations. Otherwise, you would end up with with the new version having worse performance than the older ones. And the biggest change I left for the end. So the one thing that you probably heard about already that's coming to Python 3.10 is pattern matching. So in the new release, Python will have a switch case style conditional, which we know from most of the other languages. The simplest case would look like this. So you would use match keyword and a pattern, and then individual cases. In this example, the pattern is just a variable, which is a string, and the individual cases match against the specific string. In this kind of simple matching, you can also use the OR operator, vertical line, to match against multiple ones. And there's also a wildcard, which is underscore, kind of throwaway variable, which acts the same way as a default in other languages. This kind of a catch-all variable, and if you omit it, it's no op, so it kind of falls through and it returns none. This being Python, Python being like having like everything on steroids, there are also options to use more complex matching, for example, using iterables. In this example, you can see that we are using tuple as a pattern. So the person here is actually would be a tuple of 3 strings, so name strings and integers. We then can match against the whole iterable, so and catch the individual parts of it into variables. So here we catch the first one into name, and then we can print it. We throw away the second one, and then actually match against the third one. Same in the second case, and in the third one we catch all 3 of them and print 2. And this is how it works. if you don't want to use plain iterables, it also works with classes. So this example does the same thing as the previous one, but instead uses data class. So we can use in the individual cases, we can use something that might look like a constructor, but it actually does not construct the object. It's just kind of a template. In this first case, you can also see a guard. So if you need to do additional filtering, you can use if statement at the end of each case. As you can see below, it also works both with keyword arguments and positional arguments. So here we assign specifically to first one. Here we use again underscore and actual strings, and here we use positional ones. And final piece for pattern matching is usage of nested patterns. So in case classes and iterables are not enough for your pattern matching, you can even nest them into each other. So here in this reduced example, you can see that you can have a list of persons or a list of persons, and then you can even assign them to a variable with s keyword, or you can even use unpacking with star operator, so you can grab the beginning or the end or middle of the iterable and get it into variable to work with later. If you want more better thought out examples, you can visit this link. There are more specifics on how it works and how can you use it. And that's all from me. This was a quick one. I don't want to go into super big details about the new release. All the things are out there on the release page. So if you want the excruciating details, you can check it out yourself. And you should also do that anyway, because the beta release is not yet out, so there might be some changes which might impact you. And yeah, thank you for listening. And yeah, that's all.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Big applause with all your mics muted for presenting today. It was a blast. We have well, zero official. Oh, there is one, probably a question. But I have one very softball at the beginning, and that is, of those presented features, which one is your personal best that you feel like a game changer?
I really like the syntax errors and attribute error and name error improvements, because you see them all the time, and it's nice to be faster with debugging.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds very, very, very handy, exactly for debugging reasons. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so I have well, a question not coming from me finally, and that is from Tomáš. I like this case switch idea. How fast is pattern matching compared to the old if-else elif style?
That's actually a good question, and I didn't test that, and it might be hard to test it yet, because there are still changes being made. So not sure, but I would expect there to be some kind of optimizations made for these kinds of things. So hopefully it's at least the same, if not faster. But I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. We're waiting for more questions. Does anyone have from a public anything for Python 3.10? while we're waiting, I will ask yet again. So you said that we've got 3.10, 3.11 even in the pipeline. But is there already a plan for Python 4?
I'm not aware of that. I would expect there to be some big breaking change if Python 4 would come. And maybe if there's like if they get rid of the what's it called, the log, make it improvements for multi-threading and stuff like that. So maybe that would be a reason for 4.0, but I don't see that coming too soon, considering that Python 2 still is like alive, even though it shouldn't be. So the end of life of Python 2 point whatever was just recently, and bringing in Python 4 again.
Yeah.
Maybe too early.
The jump between 2 and 3 was painful, and not everyone made it yet, even.
Yeah.
So many years after, so that's understandable. And from the current feature list, what are you missing that you would wish that Python has?
I don't know. With the addition of pattern matching, one thing I loved about functional languages, or specifically Haskell, is the pattern matching that's there. Like you can build use the pattern matching to build whole functions, just like maybe like how you can write Fibonacci or factorial with Haskell pattern matching. So that's like much more powerful version of this. So this kind of stuff I would love to see, but
okay, good.
It's probably not coming.
Well, we'll see. And now that you touched the functional programming topic, is there? Do you think that Python is going to be competitive in a functional programming language portfolio? So is it going to be a language that will be able to be picked up by people that would like to do probably a functional programming, yet are not probably ready to go to Haskell?
Yeah, it could be like a middle step between proper functional, pure functional, and object-oriented. I'm not sure whether Python has a lot of features that work well for functional programming, but I don't know. It could be convenient, like middle ground, but probably not full functional programming.
Yeah.
For me, at least.
Yeah, maybe like in a future it might become. But I'm seeing in comments some cries about curly brackets and semicolons, and no. I'm coming from a I can't say it aloud, the PHP world. It's on recording, and I don't want to say what I would like to say about curly braces and semicolons languages. But yeah.
Well, there are brackets in Python. You just need to do import brackets. And
I knew that someone will break it to people, and if I see a code that contains it, I'll just cry at home. Okay, I'm trying to find out. Teresia said, from a post to the Python dev list today, this API will need to be supported forever or until Python 3 reaches end of life, if that comes sooner. Yeah, that's probably close to what can happen. Yeah, I wonder if maybe Python can. So because of the pain between the migration between Python 2 and 3.0 and 3.2, maybe even until there was 3.3. Maybe we can learn from Go and similar languages that pretty much support everything that is in the past forever. So I would like to see maybe 4 that would be very much backward compatible with 3.
Yeah, but then you end up with stuff like Java, like it's backward compatible since forever, and then people use like 20 years old versions, and like why not? And it's terrible, and the improvements in the language are slow, and even when there are improvements, they have to be backward compatible. So it's like not really improvements.
I don't think that anybody here would like to end up like Java.
Yeah, well.
We have the comment. What about to add constants and macros next time? I missed them today from Michal DK. It's a fair point.
Yeah, the macros would be nice. The Rust style macros, maybe.
Yeah, and constants themselves. I mean, Python has. It's okay. It's not built in, but a Python community maybe established that a constant is, capitalized thing that you shouldn't be changing. But yeah, it's just a variable, so nothing is stopping it.
The same thing as with private protected stuff. Like you can kind of make it in Python, but you can always get even the private ones from the instance or from the class.
I can't remember why it was, but maybe someone from the chat or you can answer me that. But yeah, I get that it was, at least at some point in OOP, there was this idea that nothing should be private, everything should be public. And if you need to make something private, probably it should be a different class. I wonder if Python went with the decision to make nothing protected or private per se based on this ideology, or if there was some different process behind that.
I think the argument was like quote unquote we are mature people and we know how to use it, so like don't do stupid things and just don't access private attributes if you should not. It's like,
yeah.
like be reasonable, and nothing needs to be private. Just do the intelligent thing.
Yeah, well, you should maybe
but then you are relying on people doing reasonable things in programming, which is not always the case.
Okay, thank you. And we have an addendum that I understand that Python is very flexible language from Michael. I am flexible as well. Also, I choose Python, but for example, pi should be constant. Yeah, that is true. But then we are adding always more precisions to the pi. So. But it's nitpicking. But yeah, there are some constants that are just constants, like speed of light or similar, and you just have to declare them somehow. But again, we are homing back to the fact that this is just the people that are writing the code, so that's fine. Okay. Gigi, can you for a second take it? I have to do something.
Yes, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Jake missed the question for Yura. It was not 100% present. The question about pattern matching. Did he ask?
Yeah, I don't think so.
So Yura is saying, is this final syntax for pattern matching? Patterns looks like normal Python expressions, but have quite different meaning. Feels like inconsistency a bit. Care to comment, Martin?
Well, those are Python the patterns in the match clause. Those are normal Python expressions that just expand to some value which you match against. So I think it's the similar idea. So I'm not sure if I don't feel like it's inconsistent. I don't know.
Yura, would you like to comment or elaborate on your comments?
Okay, do you hear me?
Yep.
I mean, inside pattern, there is a variable that don't exist in Python, or several variables like underline, which is not defined as a variable and has a special meaning. So I mean that thing.
I see what you mean. Well, they exist in that scope. When you use them in the case, they like start to exist in the scope. So I don't know if that's a bad thing. Like, yeah, there are like special meanings like the underscore and stuff. I was thinking whether the underscore is like good choice, considering that it's generally used as a throwaway variable. But I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what else I would use for the like default throwaway stuff other than underscore here for the wildcard. I mean,
maybe another sign, as a string sign or something like
yeah,
that.
like dollar sign or something.
Dollar sign, like special sign for letter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just idea.
Yeah, that actually might be a better thing. Yeah, didn't think about that.
Well, anyway, thank.
Good. Did we go through the questions?
Looks like. Are there any other questions? You like? Well, feel free to unmute yourself and ask directly, or write it in a chat. I'll give you a minute. And,
yeah. In the meantime, I'll ask yet again.
Cool.
So there's a the pyenv thingy that installs any kind of a environment that you want to, or Python version. Is 3.10 already there? I haven't checked. So
I don't know. I haven't tried. Considering that this is still alpha, the beta is probably next week. I wouldn't expect it. Yeah, and I don't use it, so I don't know. Or you said VNV environment?
Yeah, pyenv.
Yeah. Well, I haven't tried. I don't know.
It's quite handy when you try to rock some of those environments at the same time on the same machine, or just for fun, or even at work for different projects. So you just define like, I would like to have 3.8 point whatever here and 3.9 here, 3.10 none. So that would be great. Whew. Good. Right. So while we're waiting for more questions, I would like to remind everyone that we're looking for more speakers. So if you feel like a speaker material, please give us a shout. And we definitely would like to accommodate you for next, at least one meetup we'll do online. And yeah, usually when we start with barbecue meetups, July or June?
I guess it's July and August, so the two
holidays.
summer holidays months. Yeah.
Okay, so we still will have 2 speaker slots until then. So if anyone has great or even fine idea or anything presenting, please give us a shout.
Average ideas are fine too. Yeah, since it's, well, if it's Python related, it's all right.
Otherwise, if nobody comes up with great or average idea, I will have to come up with something, and that's below average. So
Come on, it was good last time, right? It was great.
yeah, it worked.
Your lightning talk.
It was a lightning talk. That was fine.
It took longer, but it was lightning talk. Yeah. So I guess I'll just stop recording here.
Yep.
Right. Cool.
Great. Thank you, Martin. And just for everyone to know, we will continue with a meetup in a very relaxed way. Like it wasn't relaxed before, but yeah, it will be just a free talk. So whatever topic, ideally Python related, or then we will go Python, IT, gaming, whatever.
Beer.
Beer. Just general living and how pissed off you are maybe with your COVID situation or similar. So, at least that's from what we saw for past few months.